When I was 5 months pregnant, Arthur Song missed 4 consecutive prenatal checkups because of his first love. And he stood me up again for the 5th one. His voice on the phone was cold and irritable. "This baby isn't mine alone. Why can't you as the mother make a little more effort? Would he die without me?" I said nothing, just staring at the hospital screen showing him smiling gently at Clara Young. I hummed softly in response. Arthur sensed something was wrong and was about to say more, but I hung up the call. After gossiping about the news that Arthur had spent a fortune on a fireworks show for his first love, the nurse walked over to me. "Ma'am, please follow me for your prenatal checkup." I shook my head calmly. "No need. Please book me an abortion surgery in a week." When Arthur found me, I was sitting on the street, lost in thought. The largest screen on the commercial street across the road was playing a video of Arthur and Clara, standing side by side, looking up at the fireworks like a loving couple. Arthur blocked my view coldly, yanking me to my feet. "What are you doing fooling around here at night? So I missed your checkup, can't you be more reasonable?" I froze slightly. In the 2 years of our marriage, "be reasonable" was the phrase I heard most often. Wanting to look at his phone? Unreasonable. Wanting to accompany him to public events? Still unreasonable. Even begging him to come to a prenatal checkup? Again, can't you be more reasonable? Once I would have apologized humbly right away. But now, staring at my rounded belly, I no longer wanted to be reasonable. Seeing me ignore him and walk forward, Arthur flew into a rage. "What exactly do you want?" "A photography studio." Arthur froze. Attending my checkups and taking maternity photos were the only 2 things I'd ever asked of him, and he hadn't remembered either. A flash of guilt crossed Arthur's face as he took me to the studio. "I've been really forgetful lately. Please forgive me." I smiled silently to myself. His memory was perfectly fine. He remembered Clara's birthday, her favorite snacks, even the release dates of every one of her works, dozens if not hundreds of them. He was just forgetful when it came to me. Lost in thought, we arrived at our destination. Looking up, I stiffened all over. It was Clara Yang's studio. I'd known since the day she returned to Hong Kong that Arthur had personally chosen the location for this woman. The studio was named Decade of Love, a symbol of their 10-year relationship. They'd fallen in love as teenagers. Clara had left for Europe to pursue her dreams, and Arthur had married me in a fit of anger. But 2 years into our marriage, Clara had come running back. After she got caught in the rain once, Arthur had forgiven her, publicly rekindling their old romance. Overnight, I'd become the third wheel. But I was done eating this half-baked meal of a marriage. My hand clutching the car door tightened suddenly, but before I could refuse, Arthur pulled me inside. Clara greeted us immediately. She was slim and graceful, her black hair tied in an elegant bun, a stark contrast to my haggard face and swollen limbs, like heaven and earth. The studio assistant, who seemed to have seen Arthur many times, grinned. "Brother-in-law here to see Clara again?" Arthur's face stiffened and he shot me a quick glance. Clara let out a fake gasp, turning to scold the girl. "Don't talk nonsense. This is his wife." Then she smiled at me. "Thea, don't mind her, she's just a silly kid who talks without thinking." With that, she pulled me to look at the clothes. I remained indifferent the entire time. Clara glanced at me several times, and when she saw I truly didn't care, a sarcastic smirk tugged at her lips. My eyes fell on a pearl-white long dress. It looked ethereal and divine. But just as I was about to try it on, Arthur stopped me with his hand. "Pick another one," he said solemnly. I frowned, about to ask why, until I looked up and saw his photo with Clara on the wall. She was wearing the exact same dress. I felt like I'd swallowed a fly, immediately choosing another outfit. As I walked past Clara into the fitting room, I heard the clerk giggle softly. "Clara, it's not embarrassing to wear the same dress, it's embarrassing to be the ugly one. Look, she changed right away." Clara smiled, but it was a smile of disdain, not generosity. But I didn't care. After changing, I sat down on a chair. Arthur walked over, gently putting his arm around my shoulders. Just as the shutter was about to click, Clara suddenly collapsed to the floor, clutching her chest. "Arthur, it hurts so much." The arm around my shoulder pulled away abruptly. Arthur rushed over, lifting her up and carrying her out, without sparing me a single glance. The clerk looked at me with sympathy. But I sat up straight, smiling. "Let's continue." The clerk stared for a moment, shrugged, and kept taking photos. When we finished, I left the studio feeling content. These were memories that belonged solely to me and my baby. Arthur's presence didn't matter. Stepping outside, I realized the wind was blowing fiercely, so I checked into a nearby hotel. But I'd barely laid down when my phone started buzzing. It was Arthur calling. I ignored it. After 3 consecutive calls, it finally went silent. But just as I was drifting off to sleep, a message popped up. Opening it, I saw a photo of Clara lying in Arthur's arms wearing my pajamas. 5 seconds later, she withdrew the image. Sorry, sent to the wrong person. I knew she'd done it on purpose, but I wasn't angry at all. I turned off my phone and fell back asleep. The next day I took a taxi home. Opening the door, I found a party in full swing inside. Arthur was staring at his phone with a frown. Hearing the door open, he looked up and locked eyes with me. His expression softened slightly, but his tone still held a hint of reproach. You finally decided to come back, I said calmly. The wind was too strong yesterday, so I stayed at a hotel. I braced myself for Arthur's anger after saying that. But to my surprise, he just hummed and said calmly, I know. I checked your phone's location. But next time you stay out, you should tell me. My hand froze midway while taking off my coat. I looked at him in disbelief. When did you install a tracker on my phone? For your own safety. He didn't elaborate, turning to introduce me to the people in the room, all his friends, though I hadn't seen any of them since our wedding. Clara Young, however, seemed far more familiar with them. She took on the role of hostess, playfully introducing each person one by one. This is old Young, he makes the most amazing homemade soup. This is Alex, total artist. And this is Luke, cute but such a prankster. Her words set them all laughing. Old Young feigned offense, teasing, playing favorites, Clara? Sneaking in that little dig. Clara pouted, then lunged at them, and they dissolved into chaos. From start to finish, she never so much as glanced my way, let alone greeted me. I didn't care. They'd grown up together. I'd never wanted to force my way into their circle anyway. Arthur Song watched Clara with such tender affection, chuckling softly under his breath. I turned to head for the bedroom, but as I did, something in the trash can caught my eye and my body went rigid. I dragged my feet over. There, nestled among the garbage, was the jar of preserved vegetables my mom had made for me before she died. My head spun, blood rushing from my face. Mom had passed suddenly. This was the last thing she'd ever cooked for me. She'd spent a whole week making it, and I'd never been able to bear throwing it away. But now, seeing it mixed in with the trash. Tears burst forth like a dam. My voice trembling, I asked, who threw this away? The living room was still filled with their laughter. No one heard me. Not until I repeated the question 3 times. The room went silent. They exchanged awkward glances, the air thick with tension. Arthur placed a hand on my shoulder, his voice quiet. Clara did. She said it had bacteria. She was just looking out for you. Looking out for me? He knew exactly what this meant to me. It was my mom's last keepsake. I wasn't going to eat it, and I never asked her to. Who gave her the right to throw it away? Of course. He only knew how to lecture me, never how to respect me. Never cared about the things that mattered to me. Tears splashed onto the floor. Arthur froze for a moment, then raised his hand to touch my face, but I swatted it away fiercely. Clara's scream pierced the room instantly. She threw herself in front of Arthur, her face livid. Theolin, I threw away the pickles. If you have a problem, take it up with me. Old Young looked displeased too, muttering, it's just a stupid jar of pickles, seriously? You're gonna ruin everyone's mood over this. Luke's expression turned outright annoyed. Clara's a biology major, she knows way more than you do. Biting the hand that feeds you, ungrateful bitch. Every word they spoke defended Clara, as if I were the unreasonable one. They looked at Arthur with sympathy, as if saying, how did you end up marrying someone like her? But I didn't care. None of it mattered, not anymore. All I cared about was the pickles my mom had made. Tears hitting the floor, I dropped to my knees, reaching into the trash to fish them out. Arthur panicked, grabbing my arm to pull me up. What are you doing? You're pregnant. Clara's eyes flickered. She knelt down beside me, pretending to help, her voice choked with sobs. It's my fault, I'll help you get them back. Her words sounded sincere, but her fingertips dug sharply into the back of my hand. I flinched in pain, shoving her away instinctively. Clara fell to the floor in a heap, looking up at me with a tragic tear-streaked face. In the next second, everyone in the living room stood in front of her, glaring at me with hostility. Arthur roared, "Thea Lynn, what the hell is wrong with you?" I said nothing, just kept silently pulling the pickles out of the trash. Arthur's face darkened. He grabbed me roughly as if he were going to make me pay for Clara. "Thea Lynn, apologize." I stared at him calmly, not backing down an inch. This wasn't the first time Arthur had twisted the truth. Before, I'd been weak and I didn't want to worry my mom, so I'd always endured it. But now my only family was gone. I wasn't going to take it anymore. Arthur's song, "Let's get a divorce." The words hung in the air. Arthur's face turned ugly instantly. In 2 years of marriage we'd argued, we'd fought, but I'd never once mentioned divorce. He opened his mouth to speak, but Clara's soft, delicate voice cut in. "Thea, as a woman, I'll give you some advice. Don't play hard to get. You're so far along, you'd never actually get a divorce. Are you really going to abort the baby?" Her words ignited a firestorm. Arthur hated being threatened more than anything. He stared at me, his voice filled with utter disappointment. "Thea Lynn, you're spoiled rotten. Stay here and think about what you've done." With that, he grabbed Clara's hand and stormed out the door. In seconds the house was empty, just me alone. After cleaning off the pickles and putting them in a new jar, my phone buzzed. It was a reminder from the hospital. My surgery was in 5 days. I went to my room, packed my documents and essentials, and waited quietly for that day. But the next morning my friend called in a panic. "Thea, turn on the news." I opened the news app. The top headline was a photo of Arthur taken by paparazzi. He and Clara were holding hands walking along the beach. Clara looked blissfully happy, and there, tattooed on her waist, was Arthur's name. Reporters also noticed that the wedding ring Arthur had worn every day for 2 years was gone. Speculation about our marriage exploded. Tabloids wrote cheesy stories about Arthur and Clara's epic love affair. Clara's fans, who'd harassed me before, came back with a vengeance, flooding my social media. "Heard you were the homewrecker. How cheap can you get, you slut? You're pregnant? Miscarry already. Don't have that baby, it'll break Clara's heart. If a man doesn't love you, let him go. Stop torturing this poor couple." The scandal dominated headlines for 3 days straight. Arthur must have known what I was going through, but he did nothing. I knew what he was waiting for. He wanted me to beg for forgiveness, just like I always had. He wanted me to crawl back to him, a broken bird in his cage. In our marriage he'd always been in control, controlling what I wore, what I ate, even where I went. All his kindness and patience went to Clara. All I got was his coldness and dominance. He was proving that he could be happy without me. That I was nothing without him. But he was wrong. On the 4th day Arthur came back. It was pouring rain outside. He was soaked to the bone, like he'd been standing in the storm for hours. He looked at me, his eyes dark and complicated, grief, anger, and something like betrayal mixing together. As he stepped toward me, he suddenly realized he was still carrying the chill from outside. Hurriedly shrugging off his coat, he pulled me into his arms. His muffled voice came from above. "I've rescheduled the prenatal checkup. I promise I'll go with you this time. I've been thinking. We were wrong about the pickled vegetable incident. I should have stopped her then. The gossip was an accident. I've told the company to handle it. No one will insult you anymore." Arthur stared at me intently, expecting me to back down as I always had. Slap you first, then offer a sweet. This was his specialty. But I knew as long as Clara Young existed, I would always be the one Arthur abandoned. I was tired of this endless game of tug-of-war. I said nothing, silently walking back to the bedroom. Arthur tried to follow, but his phone rang, Clara's custom ringtone. He stared at the screen for a long time, his knuckles whitening with tension, but he didn't answer. After showering, he lay down beside me and pulled me close. Mumbling softly, he said, "Clara and I are over. Don't overthink it." I glanced at his hand resting on my waist. He'd put his wedding ring back on. But I knew we could never go back to how we were. The next morning arrived, the day of my abortion. Coincidentally, Arthur had scheduled the prenatal checkup for today. It was the first time he'd accompanied me to the hospital. The usually composed Mr. Song acted like a nervous young man, checking and rechecking the things he'd brought 3 or 4 times before finally stopping. As I looked at him, about to tell him my real plans, his phone chimed sharply. Arthur instinctively unlocked it, and his face drained of color. The phone clattered to the floor, displaying a photo of a bloodied wrist. Snatching it up, he rushed toward the door. "Wait," I began. Before I could finish, he turned to me, his eyes filled with urgency. "Just this once, one last time. Clara's suicidal. I can't let her die." I smiled, taking the documents from his hand. Calmly I said, "Go. I just need to get something back." Arthur froze for a split second, but he didn't have time to think. Turning, he hurried out. But halfway to the door, he thought about my unusual behavior these past few days, and a sudden, irrational panic washed over him. Rushing back, he pulled me into a tight hug. Whispering reassuringly, he said, "Go to the hospital and wait for me. I promise I'll be there this time." With that, he hesitated no longer, his figure disappearing quickly. I looked away, then took a taxi to the hospital. As I was wheeled into the operating room, I finally let out a long, relieved breath. As the anesthetic slowly flowed into my veins, my eyelids grew heavy and closed. Meanwhile, Arthur, who had rushed to Clara's house, lost his temper for the first time. He couldn't believe it. Clara had faked suicide to trick him. The feeling of being deceived transported him back to the past. Though they'd been together for years, Clara had always been self-centered, doing countless foolish things on a whim, leading others on when someone new caught her eye, breaking up with him abruptly to pursue opportunities abroad. He'd endured it when he was younger, but now, approaching 30, he had no patience for her dramatic life-or-death games. Seeing Arthur walk out without a word, Clara smiled and hugged him from behind. Pouting, she said, "You ignored me. You didn't answer any of my calls. I cried so hard my eyes are swollen." Her voice was soft and coquettish, silently waiting for him to turn around and comfort her. But in the next moment, Arthur roughly pushed her away. His gaze held unmasked disgust. Clara's heart tightened sharply. She'd never seen such a look in Arthur's eyes. Feeling wronged, she said, "I was just joking. Is this really necessary? Did Thea Lynn say something bad about me? I already let you go to her. What more does she want? Does she really want me dead?" Arthur's head throbbed with anger. His forehead tensed and his chest heaved. "When did she say anything bad about you? She never said a single word. Not only that, she'd even generously let him come to Clara's house. Yet Clara still maliciously accused her. For the first time, Arthur felt Thea didn't deserve this. He truly understood how good she was. She never spoke ill of others behind their backs, unlike Clara, who was selfish and self-serving. She was always quiet, never fighting for attention. Even when angry, she was easy to appease. Arthur had no patience for Clara's nonsense. Turning to leave, he was stopped when she lunged at him. "Why did you leave without a word? Why have you ignored me these days?" Clara sobbed, throwing a tantrum like a child who couldn't get candy. Arthur sneered, pushing her away slowly. "Why? Wasn't it you who called the reporters to take those photos of us?" Clara froze, her eyes filled with panic. Stammering, she said, "How could? It wasn't me." As she stumbled over her excuses, Arthur threw the evidence he'd brought in her face. Scoffing, he added, "Didn't you say you just wanted to be friends? Then why use these dirty tricks? You even hired trolls to insult Thea. Lucky for you, she's not the type to hold grudges. If anything had happened to our baby, I'd never forgive you." Clara's face turned bright red with anger. Her teeth chattered and tears fell like broken pearls. But Arthur felt no sympathy. Looking away coldly, he turned and rushed to the hospital. On the way, he called Thea 3 times, but no one answered. He quickly checked her location via the tracker. She was indeed at the hospital. But instead of feeling relieved, his anxiety grew stronger. With a heavy heart, Arthur raced to the hospital. But Thea was nowhere to be found. Growing more frantic, he stopped a nurse and asked hurriedly, "Have you seen a patient named Thea Lynn?" The nurse paused, flipping through her medical records. After 2 seconds, she replied, "Thea Lynn is in surgery." "Surgery?" Arthur's expression went blank. He repeated, his voice trembling, "Thea Lynn is in surgery?" The nurse nodded, trying to hide her impatience. "Yes, she's having an abortion. She should be out soon." As the words fell, the operating room door slowly opened. I was wheeled out, still asleep. Arthur's face turned ashen. His legs went weak as he stumbled toward me. His gaze fell on my flat abdomen and his heart felt like it was being torn apart. His body felt as if it had been thrown into weightless space, his head spinning violently. A nurse's exclamation rang out as Arthur collapsed heavily to the floor. I slept deeply. When I woke up, my body was still exhausted. Reaching for the glass of water on the table, Arthur handed it to my lips first. After drinking half a bowl, I turned my gaze to his face. Arthur looked exhausted, his eyes slightly red-rimmed. His teeth were clenched tightly, and his hands were balled into fists, veins bulging. Why? Why did you abort the baby without telling me? Anger radiated off him, thick enough to cut. Fearing he'd say something unforgivable, he avoided my eyes, staring instead at the glossy floor. Let's get a divorce. I'll let you and Clara be, you let me be too. Just because I missed your prenatal appointment? Don't you think that's ridiculous? Arthur let out a bitter, choked laugh, tears splattering onto the floor. He couldn't fathom why she was making such a big deal out of a tiny mistake. It was a human life after all. I gave him a calm glance, my voice weak yet sharp with sarcasm. Who knew you loved kids so much, loved them so much you never bothered to ask about this one, not even once? Arthur fell silent instantly, shame burning across his face. He had no defense. He knew full well he'd been MIA for months, wrapped up in Clara. When Thea needed him by her side, he was gone. When she begged for his help, he brushed her off. Even when she fought with Clara, he never chose her. Every memory, every slight, came crashing back like a boomerang, slicing into him one by one. Arthur's eyes glistened. He reached out, gripping my hand tightly, too tightly. Thea, I'm sorry for everything. Let me make it up to you. I tried to pull away, but his grip didn't loosen. Sighing, I said slowly, you don't have to. If you really care about me, just give me a bigger settlement in the divorce. His fingers tightened abruptly around my wrist. I winced in pain. Arthur's voice turned dark, almost obsessive. I'm not divorcing you. Your mother would never agree. Arthur's domineering streak was identical to his mother's. He'd fought her for 6 months to marry me in the first place. If she found out I'd aborted the baby, she'd fly into a rage and force Arthur to leave me. Arthur looked at me. She'll never know. I frowned. You can't hide it forever. Why go through all this trouble? He cut me off mid-sentence. Rest. Don't worry about anything else. With that, he turned away, flipped off the light, and squeezed into bed beside me. 3 days later, I was discharged from the hospital, planning to hire a divorce lawyer, when Arthur's mother showed up at the door. Her eyes locked onto my flat stomach. Her face twisted with rage as she marched toward me. Arthur stepped in front of me instantly, his gaze sharp as a knife, boring into Clara standing beside her. Clara batted her eyes, her voice sweet and innocent. Arthur, I only told her because I was scared you'd be lied to. She dared to abort your baby, what won't she do? I was only looking out for you. Arthur's mother's face was icy. She snapped at Arthur, her voice trembling with anger. Don't blame Clara. I insisted on knowing. She pointed a finger at me. Divorce this bitch tomorrow. You were crazy to marry her in the first place, and now look, she's murdered your child. With that, she grabbed a chair and swung it at me. Arthur reacted in a split second, throwing himself in front of me. He caught the chair mid-air and roared, his voice cracking with frustration. This is none of your business. You drove Dad away with your nonsense, and now you're trying to ruin me too. How many people's happiness do you have to destroy? His words echoed through the spacious living room, loud and raw. Arthur's mother paled instantly. Her trembling finger pointed at him, sharp with accusation. What did you say? You're defending this whore over me? Fine. Fine. Before anyone could stop her, she slammed her head hard against the marble table edge. Thud. Her body crumpled to the floor. Arthur's eyes widened in horror. Mom. He rushed over, lifted her in his arms, and sprinted out the door. Clara wore a victorious smile, lifting her chin at me triumphantly. Do yourself a favor and leave. Lingering here only makes you more pathetic. I'd planned to ignore her, but the memory of her throwing away my mom's pickles ignited a fire in me. I walked slowly toward her, staring straight into her smug eyes. Then I slapped her. Clara froze, stunned. It wasn't until the second slap landed that she screamed and lunged at me. Old resentment and new rage fueled me. I tackled her to the ground, slamming my fists into her face over and over. She screamed, begging for mercy. Stop. My face. I'll be disfigured. I'm sorry. Okay? Just stop. My hands stung and I'd had enough. Clara's face was covered in handprints, swollen beyond recognition. He glared at me venomous. You'll regret this. I'll never let you get away with it. With that she scrambled to her feet and ran out. I calmly washed my hands then started packing my bags. Arthur didn't come home all night. Early the next morning I headed straight for the airport. This 2-year farce was finally over. Meanwhile at the hospital Arthur pleaded with his mother. Mom, do you really want me to be miserable? I love Thea. Can't you just let me be happy? His mother had 8 stitches in her forehead. She'd been so furious she'd truly meant to kill herself. She glanced at Arthur, snorting coldly. That woman has to go. If she hits once she'll hit again. If you insist on keeping her I'll kill myself. Choose her or me. She turned away, refusing to say another word. Arthur's head throbbed. Caught between his wife and his mother he felt torn in two, like his body wasn't his own. As he walked down the hallway Clara approached him. Her cheeks were black and blue, her eyes swollen shut. She threw herself into his arms, sobbing. Arthur, Thea hated me for telling your mom the truth, so she beat me like this. You have to avenge me. I can't show my face in public anymore. Sob. She peeked up at him through her tears, only to find Arthur's face dark with fury. He pushed her away roughly. Every disaster today was her fault. His disgust for her had reached its breaking point. Arthur stared at the handprints on her face and nodded slowly, his voice cold. You deserved it. You shouldn't have snitched. You sicken me. Clara's weepy expression froze. She stared at him in disbelief, tears streaming down her face. She didn't understand. How could the man who'd loved her so much turn on her overnight? It had to be Thea's fault, that worthless woman who was nothing compared to her. Unwilling to accept defeat she screamed, Who do you think I did this for? I was only trying to help you. I know how badly you wanted to be a father, but you, Arthur cut her off sharply. Shut up. He stared at her, shaking his head. You're still lying. You've only ever cared about yourself. 3 years ago it was the same. I can't believe I ever wasted my time with someone like you. With that he walked past her, leaving Clara standing there, pale and stunned. Arthur's mind was a mess. He didn't want to lose either his wife or his mother. Exhausted he returned home only to find the house pitch black. His heart thundered in his chest as he raced through the house, checking every room. But after searching the entire place, the woman he'd been desperate to find was nowhere to be seen. He felt as if he'd plummeted into an abyss. Trembling he pulled out his phone and dialed her number. The number you are calling is temporarily unavailable. Arthur refused to give up, dialing 10 times in a row, but each call went unanswered. Frustrated he ran a hand through his hair. As he stumbled to his feet, his eyes suddenly fell on the divorce papers on the table. After a moment of stunned silence he smashed the phone against the wall. Crush. The screen shattered into pieces. Arthur collapsed, burying his face in his hands as he sobbed uncontrollably. I returned to my hometown. My mother had left me a house and my father had remarried long ago, so I lived there alone. But I didn't feel lonely. On the contrary, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. After resting for a week I found a job near home. When my childhood friends heard I was back, they arrived at my door one after another, carrying ingredients to cook for me. We'd grown up on the same street, knowing each other like the backs of our hands. They never asked what had happened to me. In less than 2 hours the table was filled with dishes and half of them were my favorites. Liang Yu, sitting beside me, whispered, All your favorite dishes were made by Chi Huaizhou. My heart skipped a beat. Looking up I locked eyes with Chi Huaizhou across the table. He stared at me steadily, then calmly picked up a chopstick of food and placed it in my bowl. Why are you looking at me? Eat. I hummed in response, bowing my head to eat in silence. I'd only found out later that Chi Huaizhou had liked me, but by then I was already with Arthur. The day I announced Arthur as my boyfriend was the first time I'd seen Chi Huaizhou lose his composure. He stared at our clasped hands, then left the party without a word. I thought I'd offended him, but when I went to ask he pulled me into his arms. Hot tears fell onto my neck. In that moment I understood everything. But I couldn't reciprocate his feelings. I never imagined that years later Chi Huaizhou would still care about me. After everyone else left he stayed behind to help me clean the table and wash the dishes. As we carried the trash out he finally spoke up, Theo, let me take care of you. His gaze was as focused and gentle as it had been 3 years ago. My heart raced and my cheeks flushed with warmth. I stammered, Let me finish handling things over there first and then we can talk. Chi Huaizhou's eyes lit up instantly. Like a young man in love, he lifted me up and spun me around. I laughed and screamed, both happy and scared, until a roar from under the streetlight jolted me back to reality. It was Arthur. His face was terrifying, like a madman ready to kill with a knife. I looked at him calmly. Have you made up your mind? When do you want to go sign the divorce papers? Arthur's eyes were bloodshot, each word grinding out through his teeth. Do you really not trust me at all? I laughed. Everyone else in his life was more important than me. How could I trust him? Arthur glared at Chi Huaizhou hostilely, demanding, Who is he? I stopped Chi Huaizhou from speaking, shaking my head. It's none of your business. When are we signing the papers? Arthur had searched for me for over half a month, not sleeping a full night. After finally finding me, he'd caught me with another man. Blood rushed to his head. He was almost driven crazy with anger. He spat out harsh words. Theo Lin. I never thought you'd find a replacement so quickly. My mother was right, you're a disaster. I was blind to ever. Shut up. Before he could finish, Chi Huaizhou lunged at him. The two men grappled with each other, throwing punches that landed hard, fighting like their lives depended on it. Panicked, I stepped between them during a lull in the violence. I slapped Arthur hard across the face. He froze, tears welling in his eyes. You hit me. For him. Yes. Not just for Chi Huaizhou but for myself. For all the grievances and humiliations I'd endured over the years. He was so hurt just seeing me with another man. How devastated had I been when I saw photos of him in bed with another woman. He didn't know. He didn't care. He only cared about his own pain. Arthur stared at me, his lips trembling. He kicked the luggage beside him away. His voice hoarse, he said, I actually thought about abandoning everything for you. I was so stupid, you're not worth it. He roughly wiped the tears from his face, pulled out the divorce papers and signed his name. We'll go to the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow. With that, he dropped the papers and walked away. Chi Huaizhou placed a hand on my shoulder. I looked at him, whispering reassuringly, I'm okay. Early the next morning, I waited for Arthur at the Civil Affairs Bureau. He was 2 hours late. His face was icy cold. He said nothing the entire time as we signed the divorce papers. As we went our separate ways outside, he called out to me from behind, Theo Lin, are you really not sorry? His voice sounded calm, but there was a faint tremor in it. I didn't look back or say a word. After a 2-second pause, I walked away quickly. I was overjoyed. Why would I be sorry? I felt lucky to be rid of such a scumbag. Chi Huaizhou's car was parked by the roadside, waiting for me. He waved at me with a smile. Theo, over here. I smiled back, walking toward him with light, steady steps. The end. That's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe. New exciting content is released every week. You won't want to miss it. Also, feel free to leave your thoughts and feelings in the comments section. Let's discuss and interact together. Remember to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thank you for your support and we'll see you next time.